Good morning and welcome to the show Sports Swing on Western Swing Television, where we give you stories making headlines in the ever-busy world of sports. In the world of basketball, 30 players have been picked by the 14 clubs. Talking about the NBA draft, we'll also be looking at some of the players that is leaving and those that will be staying. Paris Saint-Germain says they will pay Napoli 133 billion naira to get Victor Osimhen. That's a huge one, if you ask me. Welcome once again to the show. Of course, joining me this morning is Testimony again. Together we'll do justice to what we have for you guys on the show. Testimony, welcome to the show.
Yeah, good morning,
and yeah, of course, we'll go straight to business and look at what is happening. 134 billion naira, that is what Paris Saint-Germain is stabling at the moment. But Victor Osimhen, is this enough to test tempt rather Napoli to sell?
Yeah, I think because they've actually achieved more this season, talking about Napoli winning the Scudetto after 33 years, and this is some sort of like rejuvenation because most people are leaving the club. For instance, their manager Luciano Spalletti, who was left the club, and someone as the Kasha is there to fill in the shoes. But then you know how Paris Saint-Germain can be when they want to actually get a player from a particular club. Remember in 2016 when they actually got Neymar from Barca, they paid a whooping sum of 222 million pounds to actually get the services of that man. So I think if Napoli get the right price, as he's been valued out there in Naples, I think he would actually go. And if you look at Victor Osimhen, it is very easy for him to agree that kind of deal because first of all, it's lucrative, can actually service his debt and his lifestyle and all that. And also he wants to go and play in the league where he has actually played before when he played in league 3 years ago.
And that's true. It's going back to France.
Yeah, it's going back to France.
And it fits in perfectly to the Napoli, to the Paris Saint-Germain squad because of the way they play. Yeah,
because we've heard rumors about Manchester United and Bayern Munich actually wanting for his services, but no one is actually being intentional yet. But Paris Saint-Germain looks like if they want to get something, they go all the way to get it. Remember how they got Messi from Paris Saint-Germain, the likes of Kylian Mbappe, and how they actually
how they're also bidding for Martin Odegaard at the moment.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So I think if Napoli had been tempted with the right amount of money, he would actually cross over to the French side to play football for the next 3, 4, 5 years.
Because of experience, testimony, a player like Victor Osimhen is 24. He's the hottest striker in the world right now.
Yeah,
it is to be careful. We've seen players make mistakes. So I'm looking at the Paris Saint-Germain. I'm looking at the Manchester United that is interested. Bayern, we also are interested. He has to choose wisely now.
Yes, I think it all boils down to, because if you're talking about how young he is, Paris Saint-Germain are so desperate to make a mark in Europe, really with the fact that they haven't actually won the Champions League for a very long time. And I think that's the only thing missing in their trophy cabinet. So they are doing all it takes to actually get over the line. But the last 4 or 5 years has been complete failure. If you want to put in mind the amount of investment they've actually made for the club, bringing the likes of Messi, huge wage and exorbitant wage. Even before the Saudi starts coming to Europe to actually get players and pay them ridiculous amount of money, Paris Saint-Germain were already doing that because they had Saudi owners and all that. But Victor Osimhen, if you look at Manchester United, they have a very fantastic manager in Erik ten Hag who can actually implement philosophies and make that man walk and score goals for fun. Look at what Pep Guardiola is doing with Erling Haaland and out there in Manchester City. In Bayern Munich, I think they are not stable at this point in time because there is some sort of rebuilding process, and according to them, that their DNA, their identity is being lost, and they are looking for ways to bring it back. But if Victor Osimhen goes there now, I think he might be one scapegoat if a new manager comes in and say, "Oh, I don't want this man because of the."
Which manager? You have a Victor Osimhen in your rank will come in and say you want to draw such a striker? Is it possible?
I think they do. A certain Pep Guardiola can do that. We know him when he came to Manchester City. When he was Barca, he ousted ATEWE, sent him to Inter Milan. When he came to Manchester City, it was Aguero who actually got the 4. So he can actually do that, play a false 9 out of nothing and all that.
And keep a Victor on the bench.
Yes, he can do that. So we cannot talk about how managers think this point in time if they don't want a particular player to be isolated up front, because that's the kind of player Victor Osimhen is. Victor Osimhen can be up front to try to like get a man marking.
But that is what Victor does is similar to what Erling does to at Man City.
No, Erling's game has evolved because if you remember when he first came to Manchester City, there were worries, there were signs about how he was going to not fit in Pep's style, but Pep actually reconstructed what people thought. And if you look at Erling Haaland now, look at the Champions League, look at the second leg against Arsenal, in the 4-1 defeat that's now faced, he actually came down to actually receive the ball, draw defenders out of position.
Take it back to the box.
Yes, then allow the wingers to actually penetrate into us.
But Victor can't do that.
He can't do that, because I remember one time we were discussing about Jose Peseiro's headache between Lookman and Victor Osimhen and how he can use both of them in the same team. And I think if any manager wants to get the best, because he's a proven goal scorer, he's a poacher. Remember one time in the league when Napoli were not anything without him. If he doesn't score, they don't score.
There was a time I think he was injured, that he was out for 2 or 3 games, and Napoli failed to score. And that they win in those matches.
Yes, 3 games, they didn't win any of those. Yeah. They lost 4-0 to AC Milan in the league, lost 1-0 to them in the Champions League, and drew, I think it was Spezia or Parma in the league. So I think Victor Osimhen, fantastic player, but if he's going to a particular club, he has to make sure that this is what is going to happen to me at this point.
All right, away from Victor Osimhen, let's talk about Odion Jude Igalo. And according to multiple reports, he granted an interview yesterday where he talked about the English and the French league, and comparing both leagues. And he also said he retired too early. Do you think Victor retired too early? Should he have stayed with the national team? At the point there was rumors that he was coming back. Nigerians, said, why are you coming back? Why do we need Victor Osimhen at this point? But then back to the main points. Did he retire early?
I think Odion Igalo is a kind of player we've missed in the Super Eagles rank for a very long. Yes, we've missed in the Super Eagles rank before the Victor Osimhen came into light. Remember how it was basically power and agility that works for Nigeria in the off-front. Remember Emenike in the off-front, AGEH, very robust, and it can actually cause problems for the opponents. I remember when we trashed Cameroon 4-0 en route to the AFCON qualifiers. He was instrumental, Odion Igalo was instrumental in that time. But then, because of the problems the Super Eagles had in the change of headship most times, because they wanted results at that point in time, because after the 2013 AFCON triumph and Stephen Keshi was sacked and all that, I think Nigeria unlocked the level that they feel that they should be in, and they expected more from different managers that wanted to come in. So the whole burden was on players to actually perform optimally, and we know how fans can be impatient about wanting to see results at the pitch of play. And I think he got to the players and he said, I think it was after a particular setback he had to call it a quit and actually focus club football. For me, I think he actually did retire early, because if you look at people who are playing at the top level, they actually played for a very long time. Ahmed Musa
he retired. Odion Igalo is 34 at the moment. I say retired, I say 30.
I think
31, not too sure.
He retired early.
31, is that too early?
It's early. It's early, because if you look at a certain Zlatan Ibrahimovic, look at the likes of I'm not
maybe if he was talking about club side, that would have been different.
Yeah.
But you can't talk about the national team where week in, week out, players have been discovered. So a 34-year-old man wants to come and play. That is what we're talking about, the Super Falcons too. What's her name? Onomaya Ebi.
So what I was saying about the Odion Jude Igalo is the fact that if you look now, right now, a certain Real Madrid, they keep activating a 1-year contract for a certain Toni Kroos because they know how important he is. And he keeps bringing performance, keeps performing, and those performances earn him a further 1-year contract. I think a player like Odion Jude Igalo is very instrumental. I remember his move to Manchester United at 2020-2021 season. It was a dream come true for him, but then he didn't actually live up to the billing for the Manchester United side. Now coming back to the Super Eagles, Odion Jude Igalo actually did listen to what people had to say, because there were calls that they should actually give the young ones a chance, because at that time we had prospects in Europe, the likes of Victor Osimhen, Ademola Lookman, Kelechi Iheanacho, and he felt, okay, this is a time for me to call it quit and give these younger ones a little bit of chance to play. But then if you look at it, we lack experience, because if you look at the AFCON, yes, 2022 AFCON, where Nigeria actually lost to Tunisia 1-0, we needed experience at that point in time, but we couldn't get it. See what that man, Maduka Okoye, did in goal and actually cost Nigeria that one. So even though they are actually retiring at that age, we actually need some sort of experience in the side to tell these boys that this is what you do at this stage and this is not what you're supposed to do at this stage to actually get over the line.
Okay. And away from that, let's travel to Kenya, where we know that following the withdrawal of the Benin Republic as the host of the 45th edition of the CAF Ordinary General Assembly. Kenya is set to stage the event. The Secretary General of the Benin Republic Federation, Matrum D. Kakas, on Thursday announced the pulling out of the country. The key decision, including the host countries for the 2025 and 2027 African Cup of Nations, are expected to be announced at the event slated to hold on the 13th of July. Meanwhile, Kenya has been touted to be the next destination for the African Soccer Governing Body. We should know the next the host for the 2025 and 2027 African Cup of Nations. The 13th of July is a very big day in Africa, because we know that Nigeria is bidding to host the African Cup of Nations in 2025 alongside Benin Republic. And the odds are there, the stats are there. They might be considered too.
Yeah, they might be considered because after the 2010 World Cup, it moved to South Africa because of how recent the infrastructure was there and the multi-million investment made by FIFA. So it was expedient that they actually need to use the facilities because it was new. Then they came to Cameroon and all that. But then if you look at the Nigerian side, this would do a lot of things because first of all, CAF will actually make some money available for them to actually carry out some infrastructural development to be able to host a competition as big as the biggest in Africa, so that teams will be able to perform optimally. We don't need artificial turf. We actually need natural turf to actually carry out this one. So if Nigeria and the Benin Republic side actually gets this one over the line, I think it's a big win for them because I think for a very long time it hasn't come to this side. Yeah. But then the overwhelming favorites are always the North African boys because of comparatively to West Africa and South Africa, they have very good infrastructural development. Even the likes of when we were watching the qualifiers of the AFCON, we saw even a country as small as Lesotho, you have very robust infrastructure as it comes to pitch and the stadium. So I think overwhelming favorites though, but then CAF will want to reconsider and say, okay, we've actually given these people a lot of privilege to actually host.
Because the last time Nigeria hosted was in 2000, when we could host them Cameroon. Yeah.
They've given them this privilege. So I think if it comes to this side, now it shifts to the side. Yeah. So I think it's all good as that.
All right, away from that, Nigerian under 16 boys basketball national team on Thursday defeated their Ivorian counterpart 67-38 in the opening game of the FIBA under 16 African Zone 3 Championship held at Eden Hearts. The Nigerian boys started like a house on fire when at the end of the first quarter, they went up with 10 points, 16-6 it was, to state their readiness to winning the title. And after talking about the quarters, they won that one against Ivory Coast, and that's the African Zone 3 opener. And away from that, let's give him also, this is Ladan Boso, elected as head of coaches in Nigeria. He's been making waves when it comes to coaching.
Yeah, Ladan Boso, he has enjoyed success, not success, but like a little bit of relative success when it comes to the under 20.
He hasn't been jobless.
Yeah, he hasn't been jobless. In the under 20 setup, when we actually went to the AFCON, they had 2 goals. First, to actually get the ticket for the FIFA World Cup in this 2023, which he actually got, but then failed to actually qualify for, win the AFCON at that point in time. But Senegal did win it. Then we went to the AFCON. Very fantastic outing. Dominican Republic 2-1, Italian side 2-0, lost to Brazil, which actually sent us to 3rd. And unfortunately, for some people, we are actually sent to play the host in the knockout stages in the round of 16, Argentina, and odds were in the Argentines' favor. But then Nigeria actually won that one 2-0 against all odds. But coming into the next round, which was against the South Korean side, which we thought was a little bit of walkover for us, but they actually used our strength against us and hit Nigeria on the counter-attack because they were quick and all that. Nigeria made lots of chances. But if you look at all these achievements by that man, Ladan Boso, which has actually exposed a lot of players to very big shooters in Europe and Asia, Haji Saki actually moved to a very big club out there in Asia. People are calling it a little bit too early for his development, but then it's a good move for him because of the lucrative deal and what is involved. But then if you look at Ladan Boso all around, what he has done with the under 20 side, I think it's a good one because first of all, he has exposed the boys to like biggest stage of football, the World Cup, the AFCON. then he has actually made his mark in the kind of football he wants to play with the Nigerian side. He's actually given the chance to actually develop these boys to what the Nigerian setup does want them to be.
You're still watching Sports Spring on Western Spring Television. Let's go on a quick break here. When we come back, we'll be talking about Chelsea. The owners of Chelsea have bought Strasbourg. And what does that mean? Because we also hear that so many academy players at Chelsea will be moving to Strasbourg, and they might be attracting some senior players since the takeover was completed yesterday. We'll also be looking at some transfer gossip. Players that might be moving. Carl Havertz, well, according to the BBC this morning, should be having his medical this weekend and should be confirmed an Arsenal player very soon. We'll also be talking about Martin Odegaard, as Paris Saint-Germain has stepped up their bid for Martin Odegaard. We'll be back.
We have men over here. De Bruyne, Haaland, 3-0. Kevin De Bruyne assist, Erling Haaland goal. It's becoming a cliche, but it's a Salah